from Dakar in Senegal, this is Essential African Information. On today's headlines, the National Anti-Corruption Commission, CONAC, is firmly standing by young people on the occasion of the 55th edition of the National Youth Day in Cameroon. The president of this public institution, the Reverend Dr. Dieudonné Massy-Gams, preceded this Tuesday, February 9, 2021, in Yoko, in the Mbam and Kim division, in the central region of the country, the launch of the Youth Awareness Campaign. The objective is to instill in youth, the young people, the values of integrity, honesty, and respect for public goods. We visit Morocco, where more than 24 people have died after heavy rain flooded an illegal underground textile factory in Morocco, according to authorities. Further, 10 people were rescued from the workshop located in the basement of a house in Tangier. The Democratic Republic of Congo's President Felix Tshisekedi has now taken over at the helm of the African Union to serve as the chairperson for a year, replacing Cyril Ramaphosa, his South African counterpart. During the 34th summit on Saturday, the new head faces big challenges in the union, with COVID-19 being the greatest. Ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned as we bring more of these stories in this edition. Good evening once more. The National Anti-Corruption Commission is firmly standing by young people on the occasion of the 55th edition of the National Youth Day in Cameroon. The president of this public institution, the Reverend Dr. Dieudonné Massy-Gams, preceded this Tuesday, February 9, 2021, in Yoko, in the Mbam and Kim division in the central region of the country, the launch of the Youth Awareness Campaign. The objective is to instill in young people the values of integrity, honesty, and respect for public good. More in this report. What does not belong to you, do not touch it. A very evocative theme to establish integrity, honesty, a sense of responsibility and respect for public goods in the minds of these rising youth. Thus, in adulthood, these young people can become active players in the fight against corruption, an evil that manifests itself mainly in the grabbing of what does not belong to us. An unavoidable challenge that the president of the National Anti-Corruption Commission, the Reverend Dr. Dieudonné Massy-Gams, intends to take up. Thus, on the occasion of the 55th edition of the Youth Festival in Cameroon, CONAC launched the awareness campaign with the aim of promoting integrity among youth and instilling them with overriding values in order that the latter are not in the future the target of an operation carried out in Cameroon called the Operation Sparrowhawk, a vast judicial operation initiated in 2016 by the head of state Paul Biya as part of the fight against corruption in Cameroon. The city of Yoko in the Mbam and Kim division central region served as the setting for the official launch of this awareness campaign. It was during a ceremony chaired by the president of CONAC in the presence of local administrative, traditional and religious authorities. The institution intends to work to awaken students to the dangers to which they expose themselves by using the things of others or of the community. In other words, it's about training a new generation of upright citizens. Thus, those who will know on the one hand the difference between private and public affairs, and on the other hand distinguish their salary from funds meant for the state. This National Anti-Corruption Body, set up by the head of state by Presidential Decree number 2006/008 of March 11, 2006, and placed under his direct authority, has been carrying out for several years many awareness-raising activities to rid the country of the scourge that weighs on development efforts through communication actions. This initiative comes as corruption remains a worrying scourge in Cameroon. In its report on the Corruption Perception Index in 2020, published at the end of January 2021, Transparency International places our country at the 149th position out of a total of 180 countries, which makes Cameroon one of the most corrupt nations in the world. This ranking sufficiently shows Cameroon's inability to fight corruption effectively. In a press release published on January 29, 2021, Henry John Mangabel, the president of Transparency International Cameroon, noted that the approximate management of the coronavirus pandemic will not have enabled once again the institution to fight against corruption and the promotion of the ethics put in place by the government, that is to say, to ensure an adapted watch in the management of the pandemic and to respond effectively and efficiently to the needs of the populations. South Africa has halted the inoculation of its frontline healthcare workers with the Oxford AstraZeneca anti-COVID-19 vaccine after a clinical trial suggested that it wasn't effective in preventing moderate or mild illnesses related to the N501Y new variant of the pandemic dominating the country. It is noted that the country received its first 1 million doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine last week and was expected to begin giving jabs to healthcare workers by mid-February. However, preliminary data from a small study suggests that it provides only minimal protection to victims of the new variant. Health Minister Zweli Mkhize said discussions were being held to explore available alternatives in the country. The Democratic Republic of Congo's President Felix Tshisekedi has now taken over at the helm of the African Union to serve as the chairperson for a year, replacing Cyril Ramaphosa, his South African counterpart, during the 34th summit on Saturday. The new head faces big challenges in the union with COVID-19 being the greatest. Details in this report. The COVID-19 pandemic dominated discussions at the African Union Summit this weekend, almost a year after the first case was reported in Egypt. The continent has so far been hit less hard than other regions, recording 3.5% of global virus cases and 4% of global deaths, according to the African Center for Disease Control and Prevention. But many African countries are battling damaging second waves while straining to procure sufficient vaccine doses, as African leaders are speaking out against hoarding by rich countries at the expense of poorer ones. According to an online post from the African Union Commission ahead of the summit, corresponding to an interview with the chairman of the African Union executive body, Moussa Faki Mahamat, there is a vaccine nationalism on the rise, with other rich countries jumping the queue, some even pre-ordering more than they require. Chat Moussa Faki Mahamat was re-elected the chairperson of the African Union Commission on Saturday during the two-day summit. Vaccine financing was also discussed at the summit. Other issues facing the continent are the Nile Dam dispute and conflicts in Ethiopia's Tigray, the Sahel, and the Central African Republic. The African Union is a continental body consisting of the 55 member states that make up the countries of the African continent. It was officially launched in 2002 as a successor to the Organization of African Unity, the OAU, that ran from 1963 to 1999. The main objectives of the Organization of African Unity were to rid the continent of the remaining vestiges of colonization and apartheid, to promote unity and solidarity amongst African states, to coordinate and intensify cooperation for development, to safeguard the sovereignty and territorial integrity of member states, and to promote international cooperation. The African Union is guided by its vision of an integrated, prosperous, and peaceful African, driven by its own citizens and representing a dynamic force in the global arena. Achieve greater unity and solidarity between African countries and their people, defend the sovereignty, territorial integrity, and independence of its member states, accelerate the political and socio-economic integration of the continent, promote and defend African common position on issues of interest to the continent and its people, and encourage international cooperation, amongst others, are the current aims of the African Union. More than 24 people have died after heavy rains flooded an illegal underground textile factory in Morocco, according to local authorities. Further, 10 people were rescued from the workshop located in the basement of a house in Tangier. Though the number of people trapped in the building before the flood are yet unknown, rescue workers are still at the scene and an investigation has already been launched. Morocco has been realizing and experiencing heavy downpours in recent weeks as blocked or poorly maintained drains often worsen flooding in Morocco's cities. Videos from Tangier over the past few days show cars completely submerged in water, with a local media reporting that water poured into the basement of the building where the people were working. Many of those trapped inside the building were rescued by a local man who used a rope to bring them to safety, according to a government official who said those killed were all aged between 20 and 40. Morocco's textile and leather industry is heavily reliant on informal operations, including unregulated factories, leading to unsafe conditions for workers. Somali has missed a key deadline to hold a presidential election on February 8, 2021, plunging the country into political uncertainty as the first term of incumbent President Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo Mohamed ended on Monday. Talks between the federal government and, of course, regional states on how to proceed with elections collapsed on February 5, 2021, as this report brings more details. In a statement on Monday, opposition presidential candidates said they would cease to recognize Mr. Farmajo as president because his term had expired. The formation of a transitional body made up of the speakers of the two houses, leaders of regional administrations, and representatives from their alliance was called for to steer the country towards elections. The opposition also urged the Somali National Army to stop taking orders from President Farmajo from Monday, even though a parliamentary resolution passed last year allows the president and parliament to remain in office until successors are elected in an effort to avoid the power vacuum. This is not the first time the country is disrespecting elections dates, as parliamentary election dates in December 2020 were not respected due to persistent disputes between the federal government and some regional administrations. President Farmajo and the leaders of Somali's 5 semi-autonomous federal states reached an agreement in September that paved the way for indirect parliamentary and presidential elections in late 2020 and early 2021, even though it fell apart as squabbles erupted over how to conduct the vote and last-minute talks to salvage the agreement collapsed on Friday. Jubaland, one of the regions at odds with Mogadishu, accused President Farmajo of refusing their attempts at compromise. According to the opposition, any attempts at partial or parallel elections will not be supported by the international community, as fears of the president demanding a power extension keeps rising, with lawmakers standing against the idea. The president blames his rivals for reneging on the terms. That report on elections in Somalia brings us to an end to this edition of the English Newscast. Thanks for tuning in and staying tuned. Remember, up next is Le Journal de 20h avec Thierry Nyopé. Stay tuned and see you tomorrow exactly 7 p.m. Good evening.